We were 3 miles from my home, and it was freezing rain outside, and this is in Michigan, so when it was hitting the ground, it was like frozen immediately. There was no traction for any tires. The last thing I remember seeing was the car in our lane, and then I don't remember anything. I woke up still in the car, and the paramedic, I remember the paramedic saying, "Oh, she's alive." I didn't realize the extent of my injuries. They said if my seatbelt had stayed on, and with the force, my head would have been stuck in place, and that would have come down and decapitated me. I didn't want to believe what they were telling me. I was 14 years old. I didn't want to be in a wheelchair. I was supposed to be a paraplegic. Every mountain that we've been through, that we've had to climb, God was with us every step of the way. It wasn't us. We didn't do anything. We just had to follow him. I was born in I was born in Flint, Michigan. I didn't live in Flint, Michigan, but I was raised in a small town of Goodrich, which is southeast Michigan. Lots of farming community. I grew up on a farm. I had 13 acres and a nice little farmhouse that my parents built when they moved. They actually moved from Detroit to Goodrich, and that's where we were raised. I'm the youngest of 5 children. I have 3 brothers and a sister. And yes, I was always fascinated by the arts growing up. Loved acting, music, dance. I'm not a dancer at all, but I just love the arts, singing and anything that was creative. I love to get involved with, but I was very shy as a little girl, so I never pursued it outside of my home. I would put on plays as a little girl in my room, or pretend it was a movie set, or pretend I was acting in movies, and it was just being a kid with a wild imagination. And I had 13 acres and woods that I would go and do the same thing in the woods. I was 14. It was December 28th, 2000, when I was at a friend's house. We had went to the Genesee Valley Mall in Flint, Michigan, and we were there with her brother and her sister and her sister's boyfriend, and we went shopping and we were hanging out. And then afterwards, I had my mom's cell phone. Those Nokia cell phones. We were on a Sprint family plan back in the day. And I remember calling her and asking, "Hey, is it okay if my friend Nikki comes over and stays the night tonight?" She said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So her sister's boyfriend offered to drop us off at my house after we were done hanging out. We had gone to Meijer after to pick up some snacks, chips and popcorn and the whole bit. And then from there, we were going to go to my house. We were 3 miles from my home, and it was freezing rain outside, and this is in Michigan, so when it was hitting the ground, it was like frozen immediately. There was no traction for any tires. And coming the opposite way was a Mazda truck and a Durango, and we were in a tiny little Neon. And the driver of the Mazda had been drunk, and they had pushed a Durango into our lane, so we were being instant. I remember leaning over. I had my seatbelt on. I was sitting behind the driver, looking out the window, and I felt the car slow down pretty quick, or attempt to slow down, and then we were sliding on the road on the blacktop. I look over and I see this car. What it looked like to me was somebody backing out of a driveway and not looking where they were going. But it actually turned out that they were pushed into our lane by the truck. And so we were hit head on by that Durango. And then we were again broadsided by the Mazda truck. And so our neon became a three-dimensional box, and with one of the trucks going over the car. The last thing I remember seeing was the car in our lane, and then I don't remember. I woke up still in the car, and the paramedic, I remember the paramedic saying, "Oh, she's alive." And he's like starting to like pat my head down, and he's like getting me all he's getting me ready to be put on a stretcher to get into an ambulance. This is also a really miraculous thing that happened. Behind us there were two off-duty paramedics who were able to call in the accident when it happened. And like, that's not God. And the people in the Durango were coming back from a church meeting, a youth group. They got out of the car and they surrounded our car and they started praying. And I do remember hearing my dad's voice. He was on scene whenever I woke up. He was, or shortly after I woke up. Time was kind of odd. I was in and out, like really tired from all the blood loss. And I remember saying to my dad, "My back hurts, Dad. I want to go home on my way down." He said, "Well, you're not going home." I didn't realize the extent of my injuries. And my mom was in the ambulance with us when we went to the hospital, and I was in and out of a coma for a few days there. And I remember everything while I was in my coma. I remember it all. I remember my sister sitting down, holding my hand, talking to me about my cat Precious, who was mad, going around the house meowing because I wasn't in my room. And I thought I was talking back to her. I was letting her know what my friend had given me, is beautiful black or dark cherry wood box, jewelry box. I was in and out of a coma for 3 days. I was go in and go back out a little bit, but I remember everything. So I thought I was talking back to my sister. And I didn't realize until after I had fully come out of the coma and they moved me down to step down, from intensive care to step down, that I wasn't talking back. She said, "You didn't say one word while you were in intensive care. You didn't say anything. You were out." But I thought I could. I thought I remembered seeing her. I thought I remembered hearing and talking to the doctors. They would come in, they would ask questions, they would talk to me. The nurses would talk to me. And looking back, I know it's weird. It makes sense now. They never answered me when I asked questions. I'd be there, and how long am I going to be here? How long am I going to be here? What happened? Where's my mom? Where's my dad? Nothing. They did not respond to me at all. It is the weirdest thing being in a coma. It turns out, I mean, all of that did happen. Those nurses did talk to me. They did carry on like I was coherent, but they even said, "No, you never spoke to us. Yes, we did say that. Yes, those are all things that we've said to you, but you did not respond and you did not ask any questions."
So you actually thought that you were asking them questions when you were in a coma. Now,
Yep.
real quick, before you move to another point,
Sure.
you had mentioned something to me about the seatbelt too.
Yes.
And that's also very powerful, because I believe in that situation you shared about the seatbelt that God intervened as well too.
Yes. I was wearing my seatbelt, and what had happened when we were hit, the seatbelt snapped. And I was no longer confined. What had happened, my head had gone through the passenger window. We're right behind the driver where I was seated. And I have a nice scar in my head as a result. But as turns out if that seatbelt had not snapped, it would have held me in place. And how they are determining what had happened is my head went through the window and broke the bottom half, top half came down and sliced me right here. They said if my seatbelt had stayed on and with the force, my head would have been stuck in place, and that would have come down and decapitated me. So the fact that the seatbelt snapped is a miracle in itself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm sure that had to be horrible for, I mean, we're both parents.
Yes.
So I mean, to something like that for your parents to have to go through too, to hear that and to know, it probably gave them great faith too, to see what happened and how God intervened and took care of you. So you were in a coma for 3 days. And then what happened after that?
Well, I remember them saying that they would tell me probably never walk again. The mere fact that I was talking like a stroke victim. I was very broken speech, very it wasn't very coherent for first coming up, but it said it probably would not be able to talk very well for the rest of my life. And having children, nope, out of the question. If I would conceive, the chances of carrying to term would be very slim, very slim. And I was heartbroken because I always wanted to be a mom, and I always wanted to, have that experience being a mom. And well, when it was time for me to be discharged, I did walk out of the hospital. I stumbled out, but I did. I told the lady, I was like, I want to walk. Well, my sister helped me out of the wheelchair, and the nurse was there. She said, okay, she's stumbling out of the hospital. Because I didn't want to believe what they were telling me. I was 14 years old. I didn't want to be in a wheelchair. I was supposed to be a paraplegic because my spine, my vertebrae was severed. My neck was broken. And another thing, in the hospital that night, they were going to prep me because I had so much pressure built up in my brain. They were prepping me for surgery. And my mom has a miraculous story about that. She was staying with me. She remembers seeing a soft glow around me. And when the doctors came in to check everything, they gave me another CT scan and everything like that. The pressure's gone. And her neck isn't like this anymore. It wasn't severed anymore. It had actually been corrected by something. It was more supernatural.
Wow.
It is a miracle. So I could feel my limbs. They were tingly. They were tingly for a long time after that accident. I was in physical therapy for a very long time, a little over a year. Speech therapy, had some speech therapy, went through some different places in Flint to figure out what would, for learning, continuing on with education, to see where I would be at. And I had to repeat a grade one time, but that was 9th grade I had to repeat. But I ended up graduating high school 6 months early from my original class because my sister homeschooled me. And then I was involved with homeschool co-op groups, and my brain healed, and I was able to catch up and then jump ahead and graduate 6 months early.
Actually, I think you shared with me that you remember when you first started out, you were explaining about how you were kind of shy or not as outgoing, but actually after your injury and everything that happened, it kind of changed you. How did that change you?
As a result of the closed head injury, I had a personality change. I used to be very introverted, and now I'm very extroverted. So My shyness and not wanting to audition for things had changed from I'm now singing louder in choir. I am now wanting to get involved with other church productions, and I'm getting involved with high school and middle school plays. I all of a sudden started being very, very involved, and that's when it all started. I was still 14, going on 15, when I started to get involved with local small productions.
It sounds like when God healed you, that he actually gave you some sort of, transformation as well. Like he
Yeah.
gifted you.
Yeah, and it was I'm grateful. The whole accident is a testimony. And yes, I'm walking, I'm talking, and I have 5 amazing children that are mine and my husband's. Yeah, it's amazing. Yes, we lost 2. I had 2 miscarriages and I had 1 ectopic. I always say I'm a mother of 8, just 5 are living, and this side of eternity. And I believe one day I will hold those that I lost. I have a little boy who's going to be 10 this December, who, when he was 5, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and we almost lost him a few times. And the fear of losing that child that you've been able to hold and love at this point in time, he was 5 for those 5 years, and that fear of losing and that fear of loss is so similar to the fact that like losing that child that I never held. I had 1 miscarriage. Josh and I were married in October of 2009. It was January of 2010. I started experiencing a lot of pain and issues. It turned out that I had been pregnant. I was only about 4 or 6 weeks along. So they called it a chemical pregnancy, miscarriage. But the feeling of loss that I had with that child, knowing I had been pregnant and then lost this child, and then nearly losing my boy, it was so similar. That loss is so real. But yeah, praise God, another miracle. He's alive and well. He's doing great. 10 years old. He is in 5th grade this year. It's incredible.
So he's totally recovered now, or?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. Another miracle of God,
Absolutely. He took his checkups, to see where his levels are at, and he's completely fine. They still say no disease found. So,
like I said, I've got 4 kids. So I know as a mother that had to be absolutely horrible to live every day thinking this could be my last day.
Yeah.
Or something, and just that would just be hard. I don't know. I don't do well with stuff about, like, I can't even stand it when I read the news and you hear something about a kid. It just like really yanks at my heart and bothers me. So I can't even imagine having to go through that. But it's awesome and amazing that you made it through that, and then by the end of it, God came through once again.
It's a miracle. It is. Yeah, it was shortly before he was diagnosed. I started getting involved with some student films in Missouri, and then he was diagnosed. So that was June of 2018, and I started getting involved. He was sick a lot in early 2018, so I stepped back from working at Skywatch to take care of Nathan because he was really sick, but nobody could tell us what was going on. He would have his blood checked and everything was quote unquote normal, but nothing. So it was nothing out of the ordinary. They're like, oh, it's just probably allergies and there's weird things going around the school or whatever. And the mom in me was like, something isn't right. He's not normally like sick all the time. This doesn't make sense. Well, then it was February, where it was in January his lymph nodes started to swell up. And so I got him in to see a doctor, and They said it was cat scratch disease. I was like, okay, my cat scratch, like my cats are indoor cats. I don't know how that would be the culprit, but okay. They gave him a few medications. They said in a couple weeks will start to go down. In a couple weeks, they started getting bigger, and so I got a second opinion. And it turns out, well, his white blood cell count was fine. That 2 weeks prior to getting him rechecked, it was that they were at like 4,500, pretty standard. Anything between 4 and 10,000 is pretty standard for a child, and really any adult. Adults usually 6 to 10,000, sometimes 11. And well, his blood cell count went all the way up to over 100,000. So that definitely was some red flags. Then I got him in the next morning, and he was diagnosed with T-cell leukemia, and which is very strange for a 5-year-old boy to have T-cell leukemia. Usually it's B-cell. T cells usually aren't produced in the body for children until they're around 9 or 10 years of age. Nathan's thyroid and his bone marrow were a little confused, and started producing them, and started producing way too many of them, and his body turned on itself and had leukemia. I was on the phone with my mom on the way to the hospital, and I said, okay, I'm not going to be surprised if they say it's some sort of cancer. And you think, I'm sure I was trying to like pretend, like really trying to prepare myself to hear it, but nothing prepares you. You can try to prepare all you want, but until you actually hear those words, it is leukemia. It is a shock. I just broke down, and then I called the daycare lady who was watching our kids, so I could get my son to the hospital. Like, I don't know when I'm gonna be there to pick him up. Because we went from the hospital to Memphis, St. Jude. We were in Springfield, Missouri, and then we went straight to Memphis. And I was almost 36 weeks pregnant with my 4-year-old. And so I called family and friends, and I let them know what was going on. And then lastly, I called my midwife, and I said, I'm not going to be making it to my 36-week checkup. This is what's going on. She completely understood. She got together with other midwives and found a midwife team in Memphis to continue to care for me for the rest of my pregnancy while we were there taking care of Nathan. And St. Jude was absolutely amazing, incredible. His doctor was very kind and loving, also a Christian, which really made the difference. Really did. You know, he didn't give up on him, because we almost lost him a few times. Remember how I said his blood count was 100,000? Well, by the end of the night, that was about 8 o'clock in the morning on February 12th, when he was diagnosed. It was a little over 100,000. By the night of the 12th, it was already up to almost 400,000. And they were saying, yeah, it was very aggressive. It was very, it was so quick and not look good, because he did not respond to the first treatment that they gave him. They had to push one treatment, and it wasn't making a difference, so they had to push a second treatment, and then they had to wait. And his doctor said, now, if this doesn't work, we're going to have to push a third. But that means that he may need to be on dialysis. Dialysis could be short term, it could be the rest of his life. Praise God, it started to work. Numbers came down to 250,000 at, I think it was 3 in the morning on the 13th of February. This happened now. And it was scary. It was very scary. And lots of tears, lots of prayers. Lots of, oh my gosh, just every emotion. Anger, frustration, depression, just everything was going through our minds. Okay. And we almost lost him before he was diagnosed. Like, he was turning ashen gray. He had no energy. He wasn't eating. He had this persistent cough. And I was like, why is nobody telling me? Why can't they tell me what this is? This is not right. And I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I, as a mom and as somebody who has some medical, at this time in my life, I had some medical training, just knowing that this is not normal. This isn't right. And it was, I'm just so happy that time of our life is over. And I'm so thankful that he's alive and well. He's recovering nicely. You know, he's got a hard time with his muscles. He's trying to do the gymnastics that his little brother does. His little brother does cartwheels and flips and things like that. He's trying. He's getting better. And it's just that muscle mass and that muscle memory. He's got, and I worked with him swimming this year, because he never learned how to swim because of this. But now he's learning to swim, and he's doing a great job. Really good job. I'm really proud of him.
We don't always understand why God allows things to happen that happen. Bad things happen to good people. We go through trials, tribulations, and sufferings of various types. And of course, for some people, the outcome isn't always what they had hoped for. Kind of like in Hebrews 11, Paul talks about all the people, you know, throughout the Bible that had faith and hoped and how it turned out good for them. But then at the end of it, he mentions the people who had faith and hope, but God's will was still done and it didn't necessarily turn out the way they wanted. We never know what God is doing, what he's going to do or why, but throughout your life from childhood, he's just given you all of these things that of course were hurdles that you had to jump. But
yeah,
he's given you all these things, or mountains, but you made it through. You know, it wasn't easy by any stretch. It was all things that were very difficult, very painful, whether it be physically or emotionally painful. They were very difficult for you and for others as well who went through it with you. But God got you through it.
Yes.
Like you talked about the things the doctor said.
Absolutely. You know, we relied on God, and every testimony, every mountain that we've been through, that we've had to climb, you know, God was with us every step of the way. It wasn't us. We didn't do anything. We just had to follow him. When you're in that moment, when you're in that storm, it is so hard. It is so hard. You know, you're inside, you're like, your brain is telling you, yes, okay, I know, God, I know you have it. But my flesh is like screaming, oh my gosh, why is this happening? I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And looking back on a lot of these things, it was definitely a faith builder. We're stronger in our faith because of it. Now, that doesn't mean like when things get rough, we're just like, oh, you know, it's no big deal, because still sometimes when things get rough, it's like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get out of it? And we remind ourselves, yes, God has this. Somehow he's going to get us through. We just have to follow his directions. But in a way, looking back at the big things that we've had to come out of, the little things, like sometimes financial things come up. It's like, oh shoot, how are we going to pay this bill? It's like a small thing compared to what we went through. It's like, okay, well, we got through that and we were able to pay for Nathan's things. Somehow God is gonna, you know, come through, and something's gonna come up, and we're gonna be able to get through this little small. That's the only way it could have been, because I look back, even now, even after we came back from Memphis and he was in remission but still needed to carry on the remainder of like another 2-3 years. I felt like when we were all done, how did we do that? Even that, going to the hospital, driving an hour one way every day at times, blood work, medication, tests, all this stuff, felt like I was on autopilot. It's because God was literally carrying us. That's the only way. Like the strength, that's God gave us the strength, and God literally carried us through that.
Especially with you being pregnant at the time too, you know,
Oh,
and
yep.
then having the baby and all that. I mean, yeah, God had to have carried you through all that because that's a lot to go through. And
Yeah,
how
Lily.
long pregnant were you again when you first
I
found out?
I was almost 36 weeks pregnant when we found out. So Lily was born in a hotel room. I had purchased the checks pads and extra like sheets and stuff for just in case my water broke in the middle of the night. And I 2 weeks before she arrived, I put them on the bed. I started putting them on the bed and like got the sheets all taken care of. My brother and sister-in-law came down to Tennessee to help us watch Nathan because I was due any day. And yeah, they arrived, I think it was 2 days before her due date. Her due date was the 17th of March. She arrived on the 21st of March. So they arrived on the 15th of March and they started coming to the hospital with me. I started showing them the ropes. We talked to the counselors there, letting them know like when I'm not here, when I'm having the baby, my husband's going to be helping me. This is my brother-in-law, and it's his now wife, his girlfriend at the time. And she had no ties to her family. She wanted to help out of the good kindness of her own heart. She's a wonderful woman. I'm so happy to call her my sister-in-law. And she was incredible. I taught her how to do certain things that they taught us how to do just in case I wasn't available. And oh my goodness, what a wonderful thing. Well, I went and I visited Nathan the night that I went into labor. We were there for a long time. We were there for hours. And then they dropped me back off at the hotel and they went back and they stayed with Nathan. And while I was doing laundry at the hotel and I just kind of had this like pinching feeling in my back, and I was like, oh, I'm fine, you know, I've been having Braxton Hicks all day, it's no big deal. Then I get back to the room and kind of like sit down on the bed and Josh is like, when do you think this baby's coming? I don't know, man, I don't know. It's just what they arrive when they're ready. And she's 4 days past due, but whatever, you know, the longest I've ever gone was 6 days. So I'm like, yeah, now maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe tonight, who knows. Then after 20 minutes, I'm like, I should go do the laundry. I go to stand up, and then all of a sudden, I brace myself on the bed. I was like, oh no. And he said, what's up? I'm like, I'm having a contraction. For the entire week, I would have, it's called prodromal labor. I had it with Adam. Well, Adam was 9 pounds when he was born. So for 2 weeks, every hour on the hour, I'd have a legit contraction. And I was having that with Lily for about a week. But this was different. All of a sudden, I could see my stomach. It wasn't going like this. It was going like this. And I was like, okay, I think this is go time. And I just asked Joshua, please go do the laundry for me. I'm going to contact the midwives. They had an apartment that they were going to take me to in Mississippi that was about 20 minutes away. And I let them know I was going to jump in the shower, kind of ease the pain. And I got in the shower, nothing, you know, no pain for a little while. I stepped out of the shower and it was like every 3 minutes. And I was like, oh no, this is happening really fast. They get there. I'm on the bed. I'm just like holding a pillow. And she's like, all right, you think you're gonna get in the car? Nope, I'm not going anywhere. This baby's gonna be born in a car if we go in a car. Not long after, my water broke. And then 15 minutes after my water broke, she was born. So she was born at the Sheraton Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee.
That's memorable, you know. It's a good thing you didn't hop in that car.
No, I know. I was like, I don't think we're gonna make it.
Like you always see that kind of stuff like in those comedies, like comedy shows or movies where like the baby's born in the car.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, she's gonna be born in a car. If we do not stay here, we're gonna stay right here. So it was by accident, but it was kind of it was kind of nice. The lady who brought our breakfast up the next morning, she looked in the bed. She's like, "Oh," and she brought us our dessert the night before. So she's there in the morning. She's like, "Oh, well, that wasn't here last night."
That's funny.
No, yeah, she was born. The room service there, she and I were talking the night before. She was pregnant, and she was due later on that year in July, and she asked what I was going to name the baby, and I said her name's Lily Marie, and she's like, "No way, mine is going to be Rosemary," and I was like, "Oh, how cool!" So both flower names, and so she was so excited to see Lily the next day. She's like, "I can't believe you did that. Nobody heard anything." I'm like, "No."
Where have all these things brought you today with some of the things that you're doing now that you always wanted to do, when you were younger and then you had to stop? And
Well, after that 4 year hiatus, talking, taking care of Nathan, as a gift, my husband reached out to a few people that we know who work on a lot of Christian and independent projects. And all three responded and said, "Yeah, we'd love to sit down and talk to your wife." He let them know, "Hey, she's taken 4 years off, and I really want to encourage her to get back into this. She's done theater for 20 years. So what do you say?" And so they all sat down and talked to me, and they all encouraged me, because I only had one student film that I did in 2018. They encouraged me to get with an acting coach to help me with learning film and TV acting, which is completely different than theater altogether. Like, just because in theater is a little harder, I think, because you can't really forget your lines. You're a little bit more you've got to, I mean, you can improvise if you forget, but just, you're not as dramatic on film than you are on theater. But so I did that for about 9 months, and then I started auditioning in 2022. It was at the end of 2021. Josh did this. In September of 2022, I started auditioning, and I did 2 films in Missouri. I mean, it's Missouri. There wasn't a lot in the area where we were. Branson had more shows like plays, but did things in Springfield, Missouri, some student films there. Did a short film with a friend and casting director in the Branson area. That was a lot of fun. And then we moved up here, where we're in Central Illinois, and I just finished doing another short film. Short films are really great because they're shown at film festivals, and it's a great way to start networking with other people, and I've had a blast doing it. All these doors opening for Josh and also for me, doing what I love. It's been wonderful. It's been exciting. On the set, both directors said they're keeping my information for future projects. And my scene partner for the film that I did, it's set in World War II, and it's kind of a little creepy. It's really fun though. It's really fun. It's not gross. It's not gross. But it's set in Romania during the Second World War. And but my scene partner also said, he's like, "Hey, I've got your information. I'm going to suggest you. I'll keep you in mind for other projects too." So I think that's great. The area where I'm involved in is Chicago is a pretty big area to work up there, and it seems like the actors and the directors, like they really look out for each other here. They're not throwing each other under the bus, and that wasn't the case in Missouri either. But I really appreciate being part of a group of actors and actresses and artists in general, who, instead of trying to throw each other under the bus to get to the top, like, encourage each other and really look out for each other. I mean, there's a few bad apples in every bunch, but I haven't come across that here.
I really noticed a lot of your videos you were doing, like you put up some of the the little clips of
Yeah.
some of your acting stuff. And it was really neat, how you were doing that. Like you had some stuff, from what I recall, it looked like you had written it and
Yes.
kind of acted it out like you were crying or it was dramatic. And
Yeah.
I like that stuff, but I like to here lately, I've been doing a lot of fun stuff or acting with music. I use a lot of music because I love music. So I try to tell a story. I like to make people laugh and I try to tell a story with whatever it is I'm doing. And people just don't seem to be able to separate you from other stuff. They don't realize you're acting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're acting. And I think we have to be creative. We have to be creative and find different ways to reach more people. Because, I know you and I think you probably believe that we're right at the end, just like I do. And so there's a lot of people who are unsaved. There's a lot of people who are backslidden.
Yeah.
And people need joy too. Even the people who are, they need joy. People like to laugh. Christians need to laugh. They need to have fun. So
Absolutely.
that's what I really liked when I saw your posts on Facebook and on Instagram.
Hmm.
I liked how you were doing that and you were having fun. And there's great pleasure in God's eyes when he sees his children having fun. That's one of the fruits of the spirit is joy and happiness. So I think it's great that you're doing that.
Well, thank you, and I agree. We as Christians, that we should be able to have fun, and if we have a talent that God has gifted us, why wouldn't we use it? I know not everybody is called to sing or dance or act, sometimes they're not called to do anything artistic in that way. But I feel led and called to use my gifts and my talents. And I mean, you and I have heard quite a bit from other people, and some of my other actors friends as well, who are also Christians. They're also getting a lot of that too. It's the stereotypical like, oh well, you lie for a living. No, I'm telling a story. Have you never read a story to your children? Have you never kind of interacted with your child with their imagination? It's the same thing. It just we're grown-ups and we play dress up and pretend for other grown-ups.
The Bible tells us to use our talents, but also it says to be as shrewd as a serpent and innocent as a dove. And so with what I do in my line of work that I do, that's what I'm doing because I'm reaching a lot of people who are totally unsaved. And then what they're doing, there's a strategy behind all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're doing is then they go along and they check out my other videos, which are Bible teachings.
Yeah.
And then they end up hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, I've had a lot of people who end up doing that were totally worldly people. I mean, you can kind of sometimes go through people's profiles and kind of see what they're posting and what they do, and you can tell.
Yeah.
And then they'll come to me and ask me questions. So today, if you go and knock on people's door 9 times out of 10, with the message of Jesus, or you just walk up to somebody, you're going to be about as welcome as a door-to-door salesperson selling toilet bowl cleaner or something.
Yep.
So the smart way to do it is to make them come to you. So
Yeah.
I'm using my talents. I mean, I really never knew I could dance. I mean, the only time when I have never taken dancing. So I don't really know how to dance. When I turn the music on, I guess the Lord just helps me move my feet. So, I mean, dancing, lip syncing, I've done since I was little. It
Mm-hmm.
was a family thing we did and it's fun. But I like to make people laugh. I know you love to make people laugh too. And we're just being creative with God is giving you this ability and this talent for a purpose. You may not even know what that purpose is fully yet. You just know at this point in time, this is what you wanted to do. You enjoy it, but God works everything out and has a reason behind everything. And so we just go forward and do what we do and trust him and love him nonetheless. And just love making other people happy. And it's telling a story, just like
Mm-hmm.
reading a book. It's telling a story, but you're bringing that story to life.
If you interrupt me again, I will ensure that not only do we cut your pay, but you'll be the next fat guy in the red suit. Do you understand me?
Absolutely fantastic. Most wonderful time of year.
Get the contents of that package by midnight tomorrow, or you're finished. She had chronic depression ever since she was 12. Her father had it too, and her sister. And I was on antidepressants for a little while when I was her age. She was so high functioning. She went years without any real incidents. She had control over it in high school. And then things just
And I love it. I feel more. This is maybe a cliche thing to say, but this is truly how I feel. I mean, I feel more like myself when I'm pretending to be other people, when I'm acting on screen, when I'm telling a story. There's such a fulfillment and there's such an excitement that comes with it. Josh feels this way when he's editing videos or making videos, when he's doing a teaching, when he's doing something. He has that same drive. It's not that I just want to do this. The want is there, but it's like I have to. I need to. There's something in me. Like if I don't do this, I feel like I'm squashing something that needs to come out. And and I think it's important, and it's. I think that most people would what they want to do in life and their passion, and they're able to do that. I think all people do have that in a way. It just comes in my instance, in my case, in my life, it's acting. I've tried dance, like when I was young. My mom got me into the Highland Fling dance. I can't dance. I'm just like, my legs are way too long. I'm too clumsy with them when it comes to dancing.
Doing these things, and I'm sure it's the same for you. You get a lot of flack from people. You get a lot of hatred. I get called all sorts of names, and it really amazes me that people think that they're being Christians when they come to you and say vicious things to you and accuse you, because the Bible says we don't judge an outward appearance. We only judge the fruit.
That's
God
right.
is the ultimate judge. So it's really taught me something, though. The verse in the Bible where Jesus says, get the log out of your own eye first. So what happens is people have their own areas of weakness where maybe they still have things in which they stumble in. And so it causes them to see something that you're doing in a wrong light, because maybe they have a certain type of sin. So then they see you in their own distorted way, and then accuse you and come at you and accuse you. Like I get a lot of jealous women, judgmental women, or I get from time to time, I'll have men, who will say something, but it's because I think a lot of it's because they have their own sin that they need to deal with, or they have their own log in their eye, and then they come at you. And I found too, people just like to focus on everybody else because that way they don't have to focus on themselves. And we're just not supposed to do that. As Christians, we're supposed to be loving and kind toward people. And of course, if you have a problem, you take it to them privately, but you don't go to people and just beat them over the head. And it's really sad. I see a lot of that everywhere today. All over social media, I see just a lot of hatred. You notice that too?
Absolutely, 100%. And yeah, there's a lot of jealousy out there. But yes, I can stand by somebody and they say that they left the entertainment industry or whatever because there's something there that maybe there's a temptation, or maybe they don't want to be, they just can't stand to be around a majority of the people in that industry, which is totally not fine. I can stand by you and I can support you in your decision, but your sin or your struggle is not the same as somebody else's. And I have my own. Everybody has their own things. You just you get yourself out of that situation, and it's okay. I can absolutely get behind that. But to come at somebody else who does entertainment. Now, it's like, I'm not in Hollywood, okay? Movies can be done anywhere. There's a huge independent film group, and that's a lot of us say, Hollywood is kind of dead. It's just, yeah, it's based more on franchises than a lot of the art. The artistic people have a lot of, independent things. There's so many independent companies. And that seems to be growing a lot more. And so when people say, oh, you act, oh, you're Holly weird, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm doing. And it's frustrating when people just lump you all into one group. And you're right. I mean, a lot of the women, jealous or whatever, they love to throw that word Jezebel around. And I'm happily married. I've only been married to my husband only have his children. No temptation of sin in that area of my life at all.
It's just like, it's fun. It's like, I don't even see myself. My mom even tells me all the time. She's like, you don't see yourself, Christina, the way other people see you. She's like, you don't see yourself. I'm like, apparently not, because I'm kind of like more tomboyish, silly. So I see myself as just silly. Like, I'll see something as funny and other people see it differently. I'm just a fun person and goofy. I'm a goofball.
I know. I grew up. I mean, I am the youngest of 5, and my 3 older brothers. And my older sister is 13 years older than I am. So she's had nothing but influence from the boys too. So we growing up, I mean, I again, 13 acres, I would climb trees. I had a creek I'd go swimming in. I'd catch frogs and bugs and snakes and crayfish.
I rode bikes, played cowboys and Indians, made mud pies and like made forts and
I've never seen myself as somebody who's like, oh, I'm all that in a bag of chips. No, never ever. Even like when I did the modeling when I was 14, my mom got me into the modeling after the car accident so I could learn to build my posture again. It was only for that. But it was a lot of fun. I actually started to enjoy it. So I did some runway shows for David's Bridal, for Fashion Bug, for Macy's. It was a lot of fun to do. I never thought that I was so cool or so hot because I was doing all that. I knew it was to build my strength and my posture and everything like that. And that's all I did it for.
Well, you know what? The enemy does not want God's people to be happy, and he doesn't want them to feel good or to be happy, because it even tells us in the Bible, and I'm telling this to people a lot as well. It says that by the end, it talks about how Satan wears down the saints of God. Well, what else does it say in the Bible? It says the joy of the Lord is our strength. So if our strength is our joy and we're in the Lord, as long as we're his children, we're always in him. He sees everything we do. He's always with us. So the joy that we have is our strength. So then it says, what does it say? Oh, Satan wears down the saints. To wear something down means to weaken it, take its strength. So how is he wearing down, or what is one of the ways that Satan is wearing down God's people in this hour? Through stress, anxiety, worry, just anger, all sorts of things. The lack of joy. Everything that is the lack of joy. And that's how he's wearing down God's people. And it's a proven fact that stress, which is the modern day term for fear, worry, anxiety, stress is the number 1 killer in the United States of America alone.
Absolutely.
So how is that? Because people are being robbed of their joy, and they get into this mindset that if you're a Christian, you have to be this humdrum, just have a scowl on your face. And the only things you can smile about are things that directly have to do with the Bible. Well, everything in my life, even when it's not about the Bible, to me, I know God is with me and sees. So everything I do is before him. We need to smile more, be happy. Why does anybody want to be a Christian at all or have anything to do with us if we're just a bunch of people that go around condemning people with a frown on our face. That's not going to bring in people that want to be Christians. In fact, it gives us a bad name.
For a while, I was worried to kind of really let myself show on social media. Like, I like to joke around and have fun, and you see me posting stupid jokes all the time, and I love it. And I was really worried at first, like, are people gonna think it's stupid, or are they not gonna get it, and or they're gonna, like, because I've even gotten flack for posting jokes for crying out loud. It's like, well, actually, you're not supposed to be laughing and blah blah blah. Like, I don't know where you're getting your information, but okay. But then I just decided, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna do exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be myself. This is exactly who I am. And people don't like it, they don't have to follow me.
About your husband, Josh, and how he feels the same as you with his editing, the excitement he gets from the editing and his Bible teachings. And then you get that excitement from your acting and things like that. It's an art. And so I do acting and I do my own editing and my Bible teachings, and I love all of it. So I can see both of your sides with that, because I love editing, the fancy editing. And I have to take a break sometimes from sitting here. So I really love doing all of that stuff. But when you're sitting for a long period of time, and I'm an energetic person, I got to move. I can't just sit here for hours on end. I got to take breaks and do something. So doing the dancing or the lip syncing or the comedy stuff, the fun stuff, all of those things give me an outlet to express myself and who I am and get some exercise where I'm not just sitting here.
He gave you a passion. He gave you gifts. Use them.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you sharing all of this, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I support you and stand behind you with what you're doing 100%. And I'm excited for you and praying for you too, that God just keeps opening doors for you with all that you're doing and for your family. And I just love you to pieces and think what you're doing is great.
Thank you. I love you too. And I love what you're doing, and I fully support you as well.
But thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I'm so happy that you got to share your testimony. I really believe it's going to bless a lot of people. And also it gave us both an opportunity to kind of explain what we're doing, where we get a lot of that judgment and condemnation from people, to explain our hearts, share our hearts rather. So I'm really happy that you took the time to do that, because I know you're real busy right now.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, God bless you, Christina. And I hope we get to, maybe get together again and just talk or whatever and bring some more joy to some more people.
Absolutely. Would love that.